Hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool. Oh, I did it. I just said before we were getting on, I was going to do the wrong thing. Homeschool coffee break. I've been doing homeschool superheroes for the last month, and that is in my brain. Anyway, homeschool coffee break, where we help you gain confidence and stop the overwhelm so you can actually take a coffee break. Today, y'all are in for a treat. My friend Lisa Roers is here, and we're going to talk about some topics you may or may not have thought about, but they are vital for you as a mom. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here, Carrie. Thank you for asking me to be part of the program.
Oh, yes, definitely. And you can already see we just sometimes fly by the seat of our pants and we go according to life because my moms know life does not always go the way it is planned. And so we just roll with the punches. All right, we are going to be talking about some topics that I know y'all probably think about, but you may not really invest some time and energy, which is taking care of ourselves. It's that old airplane thing. Put the mask on before you take care of your kids. And if you're not taking care of yourself, not just, we talk a lot about mental, but we're going to talk more about the physical and emotional side of that today, because Lisa has a story that I think is going to really inspire you. Before we dive into that, Lisa, could you just tell people a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Absolutely. So I've got about 26 years in corporate America where I was a enterprise agile coach and an executive coach, teaching people how to really just up their game, kind of level up their life, and got hit by an unexpected life-altering event with my health about 8 years ago now, and that completely redefined life for me. And so since then, I have been taking all of those coaching and executive coaching kind of skills and using them to help other people break free from the kinds of things that are holding us back. And a lot of that stems from the foods that we eat and what's in our environment. So I'm sure we'll touch on those things as we move along today.
That sounds great. And we've talked about this. I have a few people that have really dove into this, but I would like to sort of back up a little bit, Lisa. If you could just sort of tell people about your health journey and sort of what's gone on to bring you to maybe making some of the decisions that you make today.
Absolutely. Happy to. And I'll try to keep it short because I could probably talk for hours. But suffice it to say, on one morning back in February 2017, I woke up and I had so much pain all over my body. Literally, it was one day. I woke up and I was like, oh, I must have slept wrong. Well, fast forward multiple days, multiple months, 6, 7 years, and 26 doctors later, over 8 different medical specialties, nobody had answers for me. I I my doctors knew that there was something wrong because all of my inflammation markers were off the charts, but they couldn't tell me what to do to fix it and they couldn't tell me what was wrong. So I had to kind of take matters into my own hands. They threw a bunch of steroids into my system. I gained 50 pounds, became just really sad about myself and life and all that was happening in the world. And I didn't want to be on steroids forever because I got cataracts from the steroids. That was one of the things that I didn't even know you could get cataracts from steroids because I didn't read the .3 font, insert that comes with that medication. But anyway, I decided I had to take matters into my own hand. I started doing a lot of research and diving into what creates an immune system and why does it turn against our bodies, and started just really flooding my brain with knowledge. And it kind of came to realize that our doctors in Western medicine world are not given much nutritional help. They are wonderful at what they do. So please don't take me wrong there, but they are not trained in how to heal bodies, specifically with nutrition. And so I had to step in and be a self-advocate for my own healing. They could bring the medical, pharmaceutical piece of it to the table, and I had to bring the nutritional and self-knowledge to the table. And I'm really excited, Carrie, to tell you and all your listeners that at one point, I was unable to walk, had 50 extra pounds on my system, wasn't able to see, I mean, a myriad of things that I won't go into, but I'm sitting here today on your show. I can walk, I can run, I've lost the weight, I am more healthy and I have more vitality than I've ever had before. And I'll tell you what, in John 10:10, Jesus says to us that I came so that they may have life and have it to the full. And so if any one of you out there is dealing with an ailment or just old age, no, you do not need to deal with that. You can make it better, because that's not living life to the full. And I am really just on fire and excited to tell people the different things that they can do to try to improve their health.
That is what a wonderful story. And you are beautiful. And I would have never thought that you had 50 pounds of weight earlier at some point in time, because you just look gorgeous. So I just
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Well,
So
it was a pretty, if I showed you side by sides, which I show when I do my teaching, my class, I show my students my side by side, and it's pretty shocking what 50 pounds can do to a person.
that is so interesting, because I just saw my sister-in-law for the first time in a couple of years. And since November, she's lost 40 pounds. And I walked into her kitchen, and I mean, you could just tell, not in a bad, not like draining, but I was just like, oh my gosh. And not just that, the other thing, and I've I've talked to her a little bit on text, because this was 2 weeks ago. I was like, you look beautiful. You've lost 40 pounds, but there is something about you, like internally, that is different. And I really believe that when we take care of our health and when we do these different kinds of things, there are emotional and internal things that change as well. So can you tell,
Absolutely.
and I will say, homeschool moms, you're like, well, okay, I got kids. They are running around. I can barely take care of them. Let's again back up a little bit, and maybe could you share some ideas? I'm thinking of maybe in their diet or their
Mhm.
exercise, or you may have some other places that that really helps you get this energy and be able to sort of focus through the days of the week.
Absolutely. I would love to. I wish we had 3 hours, but I'll do what I can in the time we have here. First and foremost, I am a mom and I understand motherhood and I love being a mom. I'm a mom and a wife. And when we had our son, I made a very dedicated, concerted effort to breastfeed as long as I could. God willing, I was able to do that, which is such a gift. But secondly, I delayed putting any sugar into his body as late as I possibly could. I knew I wasn't going to win that battle forever, but I don't think he had any sugar, like aside from fruit, until he was nearly starting kindergarten. So we made it. And I'll tell you what, Carrie, my son has never been sick. He has never had a cold. He's never thrown up. He's just a very strong, healthy kid. And I think a lot of that is due, maybe not all of it, but I think a lot of that's due to the fact that we didn't get sugar in his system right away as a young child. Now, I also want to say, we all struggle with kids that are hyperactive and have so much energy and too much going on and they can't focus. Well, I'm telling you what, sugar does that to our children. And I think a lot of the foods, the food colorings, and the stuff that we're putting into our kids is, well, first of all, absolutely, I can tell you, and I don't have the time to give you the science reports, but I'll tell all of your listeners, they are toxic. They are killing
Mhm.
your kids, but they're not going to kill them until they're 50, 60, 70 years old. So it's not an acute illness. It's not an acute murder. It's something later in life. If you want to do something really, really good for yourself and for your children, start watching how much sugar you put into their system.
Mm.
The cereals that they eat every morning that are laden with toxic chemicals and sugar. I'll tell you, Fruit Loops as an example, all the different colors that they have in Fruit Loops, all of those colors and those food colorings are outlawed in other countries. In particular, Canada outlaws that. So the company who makes Fruit Loops remakes and reformulates Fruit Loops and then ships that up to Canada to sell it. But because American kids love bright colored things, we buy it and we feed our kids. So it's a hard battle. And I will absolutely I mean, I can completely relate to that because every time you go to the bank, there's suckers. Every time you go get your haircut, they get a little sugary treat. You got Halloween to deal with. You got trick or treat, all the different things, Christmas, every single holiday, Easter, everything has sugar in it. So it is a battle, but I'm telling you, it's a battle worth fighting. Let me just, one other quick thing here. I would like all your listeners to think for a second. How did Satan break human beings? What was it that he used? Food. And what was it that
Mhm.
he tempted Jesus with in the wilderness? He tempted him with food. So it is a enemy. It is, something that the enemy uses as a way to break us. But I'm telling you, if you can get your kids balanced in the sugar intake that they have, they're going to have more focus for learning. They're going to have more focus for sitting down, for paying attention. They're going to have more clarity in their mind. And you will too. If you can cut the sugar and the white carbs, the refined carbs out of your diet, I have more focus and thoughtfulness in my mind than I ever knew possible. I didn't know how cloudy I was until I got the refined carbs and the sugar out of my system.
That is so good. You made a comment that because you included moms in here, and y'all know I am all about modeling is one of the best ways that we teach our kids anything. So if you decide you're going to cut the sugar out of your kids' diet, you need to be modeling and being the example as well. Now that may mean you don't cut everything out all at one time. You know, that I don't know. Everyone's different, but I do have a question for you.
Mhm.
So not everyone started at birth and had no sugar in their kids. And so, they've got to figure out how do they sort of pull back from this? Do you have any suggestions, whether that's for the moms to be a good
Mhm.
example or for the children as well?
Oh, I think that's a great, great question, Carrie. And I'm telling you, I think it's almost better from a knowledge perspective because you can sit down with your kids and you can, like you said, you can model to them, hey, guess what? I am learning also. I, as a mom, am learning. And one of the things that I learned about is these things are causing us health problems. And they're not making us sick today or next week, but they're making us sick over time. And at some point, there's going to be that straw that breaks the camel's back. And so this, if you guys, you can almost adopt this as like a fun family challenge. How long could you
Mm.
go without sugar? Or collect how many vegetables or plant products you have in a day. Like I had, I had broccoli and asparagus and tomatoes in my omelet in the morning. So I get three, and try to collect how many plants you get in a day. But I think if you sit down and explain to your children, and we did this all the time with our son, hey, we're continuing to learn. And we would say to him, as we learn, we're going to have to make changes. And, moms are learning too. And guess what? I found something that isn't so good for us. So we're going to try as a family to make a pivot. And I think when you do that and explain it to your kids, it shows them the freedom to make mistakes and then to pause, readjust, and try again down a different path. Because kids will automatically look at moms and dads as kind of the superheroes, like you can't do anything wrong. And so they can sometimes get this unrealistic expectation to become so perfect that it might become like a, an aspiration they could never reach. So I think sometimes it's almost better, Carrie, if someone says, well, I've made some mistakes and I think in our diet, there's ways we can improve.
That's so interesting because one of the things that we did with our kids, this has nothing to do with health, but we would admit if we made a mistake to our children. I
Mhm.
grew up in the generation that my parents didn't ever say, I'm sorry. No, they loved me. I never doubted their love or anything. It was just a different way of raising kids. But one of the things my husband said was, if we make a mistake, we will apologize to our children. And it was really good. And I really think you build a different type of relationship with your kids, and there is a give and take, and that goes along with learning and
Mhm.
making changes in our life. Excuse me. I do have another question. If you did you like back in 2017 go cold turkey, no sugar, or did you sort of ease off, or what was your plan? Because here you had to make some changes.
I had to make some really big changes. And, Carrie, I wish I could tell you I'm 100% awesome with it all the time. I'm not. I grew up, okay, my grandmother was the head cook of all of our schools. So her recipes were like for 500, not for five, right? So we became the guinea pigs for anything, any new recipe she tried. And she loved making her own candies. And she didn't make just one batch of cookies. And she didn't make 3 dozen cookies. She made 3 dozen of 5 different kinds of cookies when she baked. She was just used to baking for the masses. So we had a lot of sugar and refined carbs in our diet. And I have no doubt at this point, from what I know now, that has impacted my health. But it's also something that I go to still as a way to celebrate or as a way to reward or as a way. So I'm constantly trying to find ways to replace those kinds of rewards or to replace those kinds of self-care when I feel like I really had a great day and I want to go celebrate with something sugary, like an ice cream cone or something. I have to find ways to celebrate differently or to change that ice cream cone instead of putting brownies and Heath bars and Butterfinger and 17 other things in it. Maybe just have a scoop of vanilla ice cream and just leave it at that. So it's constantly you're never going toward perfection. It's constantly making progress. And we are in a phase now where our family does a lot of intermittent fasting and other fastings. And so sometimes I'll have to just do a reset, kind of reset my taste buds, reset my gut bacteria with a fast and start again. And as long as I keep starting again, I'm a success. If I ever stop and give in to it and say, okay, well, it's just going to be the way I am, I'm just going to eat the pizza and the ice cream forever, and I'm not going to make any changes, that's the first day that my life is and on its fast way to ending.
And I really appreciate that too, because the thing is, we live here, and God did give us things to enjoy, and so I am not. I don't know that we were like constantly having sugar and all of that. We did celebrate just like you're saying, but my kids were here my grandkids were here for cousin camp about a month ago, and my son and his girlfriend came to help me, and I had some Greek yogurt, but it had sugar in it, so she wasn't going to have any. And I was like, okay. I go, well, then what do you do? She goes, well, I get plain yogurt and I either put honey or something else in it. So I did finish the one with sugar because I wasn't just going to toss it out. Okay. But just this past week, I got plain yogurt and I've sort of been testing around putting a little bit of honey. I put some cinnamon in it because it's still sort of like bland to me and I needed a little more flavor. But there are ways to have good flavor. And then the other thing I'm thinking of is fruit. Oh my goodness, my grandkids could eat strawberries forever and ever and ever, and they love it. Now, yes, that's sugar and you don't want to overboard it, but there are things you can actually do. So
Well,
I
and
mean, and there's other
fruits,
things that I've done. My son is so anti-sugar, and so he is
good.
really encouraging me. It is good. I mean,
Yeah.
he was like, and he won't eat sugar at night. And I said, okay, the tomato sauce, it's got a little bit of brown sugar in it, but I told him I found a new way. You chop up carrots, itty bitty, and throw it in the tomato sauce, and that sweetens the tomato sauce. I just learned this last
Absolutely.
week. So I was like, I
Absolutely.
got a new way. I won't be putting brown sugar in your tomato sauce. So,
Good. Oh, I applaud that. Thank you. Do not put sugar in your sauces. It's not necessary. It's also not necessary to put sugar in your bread. You don't need to do that.
oh
Bread should
yeah.
have four ingredients and it shouldn't be sugar. But no, I think avoiding it whenever possible. And please, anybody listening, don't make someone feel bad if they're choosing not to have sugar,
Oh yeah.
because you don't know what their days have been like up to then. Maybe they had 5 days where they've just had too much and they really just need to, if they get the wherewithal and the self-motivation to say, I'm going to put a stake in the ground and stop, celebrate that with them and give them something else, some other options. But one of the things, Carrie, is, our taste buds in our mouth refresh completely in just a couple of days. The gut bacteria that we have in our stomachs drive our cravings. It is often called the second brain, if anyone's never heard about that. So you actually have living organisms in your stomach, which a lot of people know these days. They've heard about probiotics, or they heard about,
Mm.
the reason you have yogurt is because they have all these active cultures in them. Well, those bacteria that are in your stomach literally drive your cravings. So if you are used to having a lot of sugar, both your taste buds and your gut bacteria are going to drive you to have more of it. And our food industries these days know that. So they have genetically manufactured our food and just, recipe wise have manufactured our foods to draw on the things that we are most attracted to, the salt, the oils, and the sugars. So sometimes you need to do a short fast, which would reset your gut and reset your mouth, your taste buds. Because if you do that, when you go back to the sugar, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's way too sweet. I can't handle that. I can't do regular orange juice anymore. I actually have to dilute it because it's just too sweet. So that's one really good way If you are feeling like the yogurt's a little bland, that might be an indication that your taste buds and your gut have kind of flipped over to being asking for more sugar than they should have.
Oh, definitely. Sort of the pastiness. I don't know exactly what that thing was, but anyway, I'm just like, I'm going to keep moving on because my granola, I used to put an eighth of a cup or something of brown sugar in my granola. And so he said, Hunter, I made it with no brown sugar. I just used honey and oil and my spices. And it was actually really good. I loved it, So
Well,
you
and the
got to
benefits
just
of
sort of keep trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the benefits of like using carrots or honey, for example, you get so many other compounds that are helping your body. So we have a tendency to think so linearly or so singularly, like I just want something sweet. But when you put fruit in your body that's already coupled with the fat, the fiber that your body really needs to kind of offset that sugar spike in your insulin, that it's amazing when you get that combination. And honey has all these wonderful properties to it that helps our bodies and gives us the minerals and the things we need. So once you start, I would say the biggest thing, Carrie, is for people to start learning. Give yourself an allotment, some budget of time and or money to start learning about what diet does to our bodies and to our kids and to their mental focus and to your mental focus. And if you're feeling sluggish and lethargic or depressed, sugar causes
Mhm.
depression, my friends. So if you have mental things that are happening or emotional things that are happening, the first question I always say with my clients is let's just pause and check your diet. Let's see what's going into the body that's creating the stuff coming out.
That is good. And it makes me also think so much everyone that's listening is a homeschool mom. What a great unit study. Let's like dive into this and learn it together. Now your kids y'all know I'm all about go down your kids' interest. They may not be quite that interested, but maybe we can twist it a little bit and say, hey, we're going to study diet and well, let's say we're going to study nutrition. I mean, I did this as a fifth grade teacher. We did all the body systems, but when we got to the digestive one, we spent a week or two on nutrition. And maybe your kids don't even know the different food groups. So we can start really basic. And as you're teaching them, you can be learning yourself. Sorry, I'm doing a little preaching because I'm like, this is a great idea. And y'all know I love
Yes.
unit studies. So take it and learn it and do it all together. Thank you, Lisa, for
That's great.
encouraging us.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that one because you know what? They're not teaching it in schools either. So, homeschoolers, you're going to set yourself apart. I'll tell you, I got to college. I'm almost afraid to admit this, but I'm in a whole new world now, so I can admit what I used to be. But I didn't know what was a protein, what was a carb, I didn't know even what those things were, let
Wow.
alone which things my body really needed and what was the proper way to fuel my body. So, doing that kind of thing with your kids and learning that yourself is a wonderful way to set yourself apart.
Oh, definitely. You mentioned fasting, so I'd like to spend just a little bit of time before we finish up about fasting. Because I've shared a little bit with my group, but could you sort of tell us where fasting fits into your life? I mean, you've already talked about the taste buds and the ways that it can change. Can you sort of tell us a little bit from a nutrition, maybe an emotional mindset, but even a spiritual aspect of how you've used fasting in your life?
Absolutely. I'd love to. Well, I will just start by saying absolutely everybody can fast, all the way down to your 2-year-old. Everyone can fast. And people immediately think that fasting has to be all about food. And while some of the best health benefits do come from a food related fast, there are also partial fasts, which are kind of the things we hear more about during the Lenten season when people are choosing to take one thing out of their diet or one thing out of their life, whether it's a media related thing or a food related thing. But there's actually 5 types of fasts. There's an absolute fast where you eat absolutely nothing. There's a normal or a water fast where all you drink is water. There is a partial fast, like I was just mentioning, where you take one thing, like I'm just going to take soda out for my diet for a period of time, or I'm just going to take sugar, or I'm just going to have a fast from my coffee for a while. That's partial fast. Then you have intermittent fast, which is where instead of really when you or what you eat rather, it's about when you eat. So what does that window look like of when you fast? And right now, what is the fifth one? You'd think that I would know these really well. I teach this all the time and I'm having a brain
I
blob.
know because
See,
when we talked before, I knew all four of them, but I hadn't heard the fifth one, and so now it's not coming to my brain. So
it'll come to
anyway,
me in a second, probably. But anyway,
okay.
so all of that to say, it fasting creates discipline, and you're talking about homeschooling. Everything we do is learned, right, moms? We all learn things, and everything we do has to be learned. How to make eggs, to how to do mathematics. Everything has to be learned. Well, we also need to learn how to control the fleshly desires that we have, the desire for food or the desire for that toy or the desire for jumping on the internet. And we need to control that. That's called self-discipline. And it's not about something you can't have, but it's choosing to take control and saying, I'm going to decide when I have it and how much I have of it, instead of letting my desires or my love for chocolate control me. I want to control it. And so fasting is a wonderful way to do that, where you can just take a pause. It's almost like when you're in a restaurant and you hear so much noise, you can't hear the person around you. The music's going, there's background talking and everything. When you fast, you're turning the volume down to life, where you can just pour into your faith. You can hear God better. Your own thoughts become more clear. You can really dedicate your energy and your prayers for breakthroughs on someone in your life who's really struggling with something. Or maybe, ladies and gentlemen, maybe we're fasting for our country, which really needs it right now. So when you're fasting, it's a choice when you're saying to yourself, not that I can't have that, but I'm going to choose not to have it for a time because I want something different instead. So throughout life, we always we're all constantly making choices for what things we want to do and not want to do. And if I go to one event, I can't go to the other event. Or if I go to work one day, well, then I can't go play that day. Fasting is just that. You're choosing to do one thing over something else for a time. And the benefits are immense. There are people who have healed from cancer, from lupus, from Hashimoto's, from a bunch of different diseases, arthritis and rheumatoid arthritis, and a bunch of different things just from fasting. So I this is a topic that I teach on, and I could talk about it all day long. So I'll try to rein it in, but I'm really excited about it because number one, it's free and accessible to everybody. And as a matter of fact, it's cost savings. If you end up doing a food fast, my husband and I right now are doing a food related fast. We've spent nothing on food all week. It's just crazy. And all the time that I would have spent planning the meal and making the meal and cutting up the stuff can be used for my faith and for pouring into God's word. So and for the little ones, it means a lot for those little ones to be able to participate in that and say, okay, well, this week my family's not doing treats. So when they go to daycare or when they go to grandma's house and they say, no, grandma, I'm not having any treats because we're not fasting from that. What a victory for them to show to themselves that they can choose to say no and have that be something that other people celebrate. We don't do that very much. We typically are all about giving self-gratification for, all the things that we want, but finding some time to pause and say, no, I can have that, but I'm going to choose not to for a time.
Oh, I love that. For you moms that think that is like totally impossible for a toddler or preschooler, I just want to share a testimony from our church. It was a couple years ago at Thanksgiving, and they had challenged us to fast the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thursday, Thanksgiving. And so this one young mom, I think her kids were, say, 2 and 4, and they talked about it, and the kids agreed they weren't going to have snacks. They go to preschool, and the 4-year-old actually tells the teacher, I can't. And it was like someone had brought in snacks for birthday. I mean, it was like a big deal, special deal. And the child actually turned it down. And then the teacher told the mom about it later on. And so I was just like, one, I wished I had known about this when my kids were little. But this is something that is really doable, but I think some of it is the way we set it up and the way we model it for our kids as well. So don't think because you have a 3-year-old, they can't do this because they actually really can.
Right. And Carrie, that fifth one is juice fasting.
I remember now because I
Juice
thank you for
fasting.
looking it up.
I was like, come on, Lisa. Okay, I know that the moms out there can relate with me on that one because every now and then you get kind of a mom brain and you kind of can't think of something, but
Oh, so true. I know. And I mean, fasting, there's just so many benefits. I know that you um have resources. First of all, thank you for what you've shared, and especially with the ideas of nutrition. And I think fasting goes right along with it. And thank you for sharing how this really can help your children learn better. And you people that keep saying your kids are ADHD, this is the first thing you need to do. And I'll just give one more little plug, and then I want you to tell about the resources. But he's almost 3 years old, but a month ago, we were at church and all the kids were in church during the singing. So he came and he sat in my son's arms, stood the whole time. He did not want to go to his class. This kid is the boy, he is the tornado. He runs all over the place. And he sat still during the entire sermon. And all that to say is their kids, even a 2-year-old has self-discipline. They can do it if we allow them and we expect them, just like in fasting. I think kids that you think could never do it can actually do it. We just have to encourage them and pray for them as well, because that will help tremendously. So tell
yeah.
us a little bit about what you have to help some of our moms that are interested in this nutrition and fasting parts of their life.
Yes, I will. Let me just say one other really quick thing, and that is
Oh, yeah.
because we don't have enough time to dive into all this, but I do really want your listeners to know there are proven studies, study after study after study that have shown that kids that are hyperactive or have been labeled with ADHD, once they removed the food dyes and the sugars, those children were completely normal, didn't need any medication, didn't need to have any additional interventions. So there is a lot of impact that you have a lot more power than you realize, moms, in just making a difference in your kids' lives. And we just, unfortunately, these days, we cannot trust the food system because they are in it for business. I mean, let's be honest, they are in it to make money. They are not in it to make us healthy. That's not their goal. That's not in their business mission statement. So it is really up to us as moms to make sure that we are doing best by our kids, doing best by ourselves, doing best by God, and choosing good, healthy, wholesome, real living food for our kids and getting those other things out of their systems that are causing them to be crazy and haywire and depressed and ADHD, and a lot of that is so much of it's related to what we're putting into their systems. So with that said, yes, I have a course coming up. I have a transformational course and also a course specifically on fasting. It's called Fast, Pray, Heal, and it is following the steps that I took to heal my body completely of the autoimmune disease that I had had. And it was so liberating and so freeing. I'll tell you, I didn't know how cloudy minded I was. I mean, you see me today having a couple of hiccups. I was really cloudy minded before I used to fast. But anyway, it just has given me such a new lease on life, and it has ignited my faith in a way that I really never knew possible. So that's called Fast, Pray, Heal. And I'm going to be doing a masterclass in August and launching the course in September. And I would love to have you and your listeners join me. As you can see behind me here, I have a podcast called Sunshine Cafe, and we just share encouraging stories about people and kind of people who have been through some tough stuff and how they've come out the other side, but usually things that you can also implement in your life. So it's encouragement, but also actionable things that you can adopt. And my website's lisaroers.com. And any way you spell that, you'll find me, Roers or Roars. But that's my website, and all the information will be out there for your listeners.
That is awesome. We will have all those links in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this, you can just click on those links quickly and be able to get this. I highly recommend y'all getting on her class and just learning more about this. I know it will have a huge impact on you personally, moms, but also on your family. So, Lisa, before we close, is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I just want to encourage them. I think moms feel so overwhelmed that, and they also often feel like they have to do everything. You don't have to do everything and you don't have to do all at once. Tiny little steps, tiny little improvements really add up over time. I think about the analogy of that little drip that's landing on a rock. It looks like it's just a drip of water, but over time it carves a hole completely through that water. So those little drips add up. And so just know that you're capable of so much more than you realize. You have so much more power than you realize. And little changes every day will add up to big, wonderful accomplishments.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate you carving time out of your day today.
Thanks for
So,
asking me to be part of the program. Thanks a lot, Carrie.
oh, yes. Well, I am Carrie Beck with Homeschool Coffee Break. Got it right this time. We will talk to you next time.